Texas, 1884. The saloon was called the Golden Rail. It stood on the edge of Cedar Ridge like an old wound that had never quite healed. It was not elegant, but it was not cheap either. It was the kind of place where men came after 12 brutal hours of labor to drink whiskey that tasted like regret, where drifters stopped long enough to remember who they had been before they became outlaws. The oak bar had been polished by 8 years of elbows, sweat, and secrets. The wooden floor had absorbed blood and whiskey in equal measure. Oil lamps hung from the ceiling, throwing shadows that made every man in the room look older and more dangerous than he wanted to seem. On that Tuesday afternoon, the Golden Rail smelled of leather, tobacco smoke, and Texas despair. 3 card games were running at different tables, the kind of games men played not for money, but to keep silence from closing in on them. Outside, dust curled through the street in restless patterns, hinting that the wind had come from somewhere mean. Cole Harlan sat at the bar, drinking whiskey. He had been in that saloon for 3 days. He had ridden in on horseback at noon on Sunday, tied his horse without looking back, and rented the middle room upstairs, the one with a view of the main street and the alley behind the building. He paid for 5 days. Cole asked questions. Quiet questions. Questions that sounded accidental until you realized they were not. Questions about land disputes in Hill County. Questions about a man named Marcus Reeves. Questions about hide protectors who traveled through Texas guarding people the law refused to defend. The owner had mentioned a woman, Eleanor Vance, who had been in town 3 days earlier but had ridden north toward the ranches. Cole ordered another whiskey and decided to wait. He had learned that patience was a weapon just as useful as a revolver, and sometimes more deadly. The bartender knew Cole was dangerous. He did not know why, but he knew it. It was in the way Cole sat. Not tense, not restless, but calm with the terrible stillness of a man who had already decided what he would do when violence began. The only question was when. Cole drank slowly. He watched the room. He counted men. He marked the exits. He noticed who carried a weapon and who did not. In other words, Cole did what Cole always did. Cole watched. Cole waited. Cole prepared. Then the saloon doors opened, and a woman walked in. Her name was Eleanor Vance. Eleanor Vance was a little past 30, but the lines in her face had been carved more by decisions than by age. They were not laugh lines. Eleanor did not smile often. They were lines of focus, of discipline, of a woman who had spent years making hard choices and then living with what those choices cost. She wore a plain dress, not fine, but clean. It was the kind of dress that did not invite attention, which was exactly the point. Eleanor had learned long ago that being invisible in one situation could mean staying alive in another. She moved with a precision that came from training. Not military training. Eleanor had never been a soldier. But it was training all the same. Every motion was economical. Every gesture had a purpose. When Eleanor entered a room, she did not announce herself. She simply appeared and became part of the space. She walked to the bar and ordered a drink. The bartender hesitated. "Ma'am, this is not exactly the proper place for." "I know what kind of place this is," Eleanor said. Her voice was low, but there was iron in it. "Whiskey." The bartender poured without another word. Eleanor sat 3 stools away from Cole. She did not look at him. Cole did not look at her. They both simply drank. 2 people in a saloon full of men recognized each other the way dangerous animals recognize each other, through presence, through instinct, through the quiet acknowledgement of ability. Cole noticed immediately. Eleanor carried a Colt revolver, worn but well cared for. The weapon was not an accessory. It was part of her. Eleanor knew how to shoot. She drank her whiskey slowly and thought about a man named James Coleman. Eleanor had been protecting James for 3 months, moving him from town to town, staying one step ahead of the man who wanted him dead. That man was Marcus Reeves. James Coleman had tried to stop Marcus Reeves from beating a ranch owner nearly to death. James had tried to do the right thing. For that, Marcus shot him in the leg, broke his arm, and swore he would hunt him to the farthest edge of Texas. Eleanor knew Marcus did not make idle threats. She knew James was running out of places to hide. She knew that sooner or later Marcus would catch him, unless Eleanor found another answer. The saloon doors opened again. 4 men came in. They were not locals. Their clothes belonged to men who had been too long on the road, dust-covered shirts, cracked leather, weapons that had seen use more than once. Their leader was Marcus Reeves. He was past 40 and wore cruelty the way some men wore a coat. It was the kind of cruelty that grows in a man when he hurts people and never pays for it. He was cruel because no one had ever forced him to stop. Marcus scanned the room. Then he saw Eleanor. He recognized her immediately, not because he knew her personally, but because he knew the type. A lone woman. Armed. Calm. Sure of herself. The kind of woman Marcus despised. Marcus walked toward her. "Well, now," Marcus said. "If it isn't Eleanor Vance. I've heard stories about you." Eleanor did not turn around. She kept drinking her whiskey. "Good stories or bad ones?" she asked. "Does it matter?" Marcus said. Eleanor turned then and looked at him. "To me, it does." Marcus smiled. It was not a kind smile. "My name is Marcus Reeves," he said. "I'm looking for a man. A man named James Coleman. He owes me money, and he owes me blood." "I don't know James Coleman," Eleanor said. It was both a lie and a truth. "You know everybody," Marcus said. "You move through Texas like a ghost, protecting people, taking their money, asking questions. You know James Coleman. You are protecting him." Marcus was right. Eleanor was protecting James. Eleanor confirmed nothing and denied nothing. "If I knew James Coleman," she said, "I would not tell you. I do not know you, and I do not care about your quarrel with another man." Marcus's hand moved toward his pistol. "That is disrespectful," he said. "That is honest," Eleanor replied. Marcus drew his revolver and pointed it at her. "You are going to tell me where James Coleman is," Marcus said. "Or I will put a bullet through your knee. Not to kill you. Just enough so you do not walk right for a year." Eleanor did not move. She did not show fear. She showed nothing except absolute certainty. But her hand moved toward her Colt, slowly and deliberately, so every man in that saloon could see it happening. 4 barrels against 1. Eleanor knew the arithmetic. She reached for the gun anyway. Tyler Webb and Cross drew their weapons. 3 revolvers pointed at Eleanor. 4 barrels in all. "You are making a mistake," Eleanor said. "Am I?" Marcus asked. "Yes," said a voice from the bar. The man with pale blue eyes stood up. "Cole Harland." "You have 3 seconds to lower those guns," Cole said. "Or I kill all 4 of you." Marcus laughed. "4 guns on 1 woman," Marcus said. "And you think you can stop us?" "I know I can," Cole said. Eleanor fired. Bang. Her shot knocked the revolver out of Marcus's hand. The gun hit the floor. Marcus screamed. Cole's Colt was already speaking. Bang. Bang. Cole's first bullet struck Tyler in the pistol hand. Tyler's revolver fell. Cole's second bullet hit Webb in the shoulder. Cross turned his gun toward Eleanor. Bang. But Eleanor was faster. Her second shot struck Cross before he could fire. Cross went down. For a heartbeat, silence took the room. Marcus lay on the floor, clutching his broken hand and shouting. Tyler was on the floor, bleeding. Webb was on the floor, bleeding. Cross lay still. Eleanor stood, her Colt still in her hand. Cole stood too, his weapon ready. Leave, Cole said. Marcus and his men did not argue. They gathered what strength they had and stumbled out of the saloon into the street. Eleanor sat back down at the bar. She placed her Colt beside her whiskey glass. Cole returned to his seat. Thank you, Eleanor said. Do not thank me yet, Cole answered. This is not over. Eleanor understood immediately. Marcus Reeves was not the kind of man who accepted defeat. He would come back, and next time he would be ready. Eleanor stood. We need to move, she said. Cole nodded. Together, they left the saloon. Outside, on the dusty street, Cole and Eleanor spoke for the first time without guns between them. My name is Cole Harland, Cole said. Eleanor Vance, she answered. I know who you are. That surprised Cole. Not many people knew his name. They walked to where their horses were tied and mounted up. James Coleman is real, Eleanor said as they rode north. He is the man I have been protecting. Marcus Reeves tried to steal land from a ranch owner named William Hale. When Hale refused to sell, Reeves beat him nearly to death. James tried to stop him. Reeves shot James in the leg and broke his arm. Cole and Eleanor rode all day. Eleanor told him about the land seizures in Hale County. She told him how men like Marcus Reeves picked out ranches they wanted. They came to the owner with an offer to buy. Then came what happened when the owner refused: pressure, threats, violence, burned barns, slaughtered livestock, ruined fences. In most cases, the owner surrendered and sold the land for a fraction of what it was worth. As they rode, Cole asked, How long have you been doing this? Protecting people. Eleanor went quiet for a moment. My husband was a deputy sheriff, she said. 10 years ago. He died protecting a woman from her brutal husband. He took a bullet meant for her. Cole listened. He did not interrupt. After that, Eleanor continued, I learned to shoot. Really shoot. 6 months of practice every day. Now I protect people the way he tried to protect that woman. For a while, they rode in silence. How many people have you killed? Cole asked. 2, Eleanor answered. Both in self-defense. Both because they tried to kill me first. Cole nodded. He understood. Eleanor told him about 8 years of guarding people, of constant movement, of knowing one mistake would cost a life. She told him how many times she had watched the law turn its back on the very people it was supposed to protect. How many ranches? Cole asked as the sun began to sink. 30, Eleanor said. In 3 years, Reeves has taken 30 ranches worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Cole nodded again. This was exactly the kind of violence he had spent his life fighting. Where is James now? Cole asked. At William Hale's ranch, Eleanor said. 30 miles north. James is recovering there. Cole looked toward the darkening horizon. Then we need to reach it before Reeves does. They drove their horses hard into the falling evening. Cole and Eleanor reached William Hale's ranch at sunset. They had pushed their horses for 6 hours, changing mounts at a relay station so they would not lose speed. Eleanor rode without complaint, as well as any man and better than most. She knew how to listen to a horse. She knew when to drive it and when to let it breathe. The ranch was beautiful. Low hills rolled under dry grass the color of old copper. Cattle grazed in the distance. A clear spring ran through the valley. At the center stood a stone house, and beside it rose a wooden barn. Horses moved in the corrals. It was a working ranch, built over decades and maintained with care. William Hale waited on the porch. He was past 60, weathered and hard, one of those men who had built something with his hands and would not allow it to be taken from him. James Coleman sat beside him in a rocking chair. His leg was in a cast. His arm hung in a sling, but his eyes were clear. James watched Eleanor and Cole ride in. "Eleanor," James said. "You found help." "This is Cole Harland," Eleanor said. "Cole, this is James Coleman." Cole nodded to James. "Marcus Reeves was in the Golden Rail," Cole said. "He knows Eleanor is protecting you. He will come here." William Hale stepped forward on the porch. "I will defend my ranch," he said. His voice was steady. "Reeves will not take it without a fight." "Do you have weapons?" Cole asked. "Rifles," William answered. "Ammunition. I have been preparing. I knew Reeves would come eventually." Cole nodded. "Then we prepare the defense." Cole, Eleanor, William, and James spent the next 3 hours getting ready. Cole walked the perimeter and marked defensive positions. He found places where shooters could take cover and still see riders approaching. He identified weak points in the house. He marked retreat routes. Eleanor gathered ammunition. She checked every rifle. She made sure every weapon was clean and working. Eleanor knew that a gun that jammed in the middle of a fight was the gun that got you killed. William reinforced the main house. He barred the doors. He made sure the windows could be closed and shielded. James, despite his injuries, filled barrels with water and prepared food for a long siege. James understood that he was the reason this was happening, and he intended to do whatever he could to help. Around midnight, the preparations were finished. Every rifle was ready. Every position had been chosen. Every defensive line had been set. Eleanor and Cole sat on the porch, staring into the black prairie. "Why do you do this?" James asked from inside. "Fight other people's battles." Cole was silent for a long time. "Because," Cole said at last, "if I do not, violence keeps winning. Power keeps winning." Eleanor understood then that Cole was the same kind of person she was. Someone who fought not for money, but because fighting had become necessary. "Thank you," Eleanor said to him. "Do not thank me," Cole said. "Not yet." In the hours before dawn, neither Eleanor nor Cole could sleep. They stayed on the porch, watching the darkness, knowing everything would change with sunrise. Cole thought about the men who were coming. 12 men, if Marcus had hinted honestly. 12 armed riders coming hard, expecting to find a helpless ranch, an old man, a wounded man, and a woman. Eleanor thought about James. She thought about the 3 months she had spent keeping him alive, moving him from town to town, staying one step ahead of Marcus Reeves. And now it had come to this. The moment when running was no longer an answer. The moment when they would have to stand and fight. William was inside, checking his rifle again. James slept uneasily, exhausted by pain and the weight of knowing violence was coming. "I do not know if I can do it again," Eleanor said to Cole. Her hands were steady, but her voice was quieter than before. Cole sat in silence for a moment, then said, "You already did it today." Eleanor did not answer. She did not need to. The sky began to pale. The stars faded. The darkness loosened its hold. Just before dawn, riders appeared on the horizon. 12 men. Marcus Reeves had brought reinforcements. Cole took position on the barn roof, high enough for a clear view. Eleanor settled behind the stone wall near the house, low in cover with her Colt ready. William stood at a window in the main house with a rifle. James remained inside, unarmed but alert. The sound of hooves on dry earth grew louder. Marcus Reeves rode toward the house with his men behind him. "James Coleman!" Marcus shouted. His hand was wrapped in bandages from the broken wrist he had earned in the saloon. "Come out. You owe me." William stepped onto the porch. "James Coleman is under my protection," William said. His voice was firm, and his rifle was visible. "This is my ranch. You have no authority here." Marcus drew his revolver. "I have all the authority I need," Marcus said. Marcus fired at William. William fell. The attack began. Cole opened fire at once. Bang! Cole's first shot struck Marcus in the gun hand. The revolver dropped. Marcus screamed and clutched his shattered wrist. Eleanor fired. Bang! Her shot hit one of Marcus's men in the shoulder, and the man fell from his horse. Tyler, one of Marcus's men, fired at Cole on the barn roof. The bullet tore into the barn a few inches from Cole's position. Bang! Cole fired back. His bullet hit Tyler in the leg. Tyler dropped. Webb charged toward the house on horseback, trying to break through. Eleanor fired again. Bang! Her shot hit Webb's horse. The animal collapsed. Webb flew over its head and slammed hard into the ground. The rest of the men began to panic. They saw their leader wounded. They saw their friends falling. They understood, too late, that this was not a helpless ranch. It was a prepared position. More shots rang out. Bang! 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 Cole fired from the barn roof. 3 shots. 3 hits. 1 man fell. A second man fell. A third shouted and rode away. Bang! Bang! Eleanor fired from behind the wall. 2 shots. 2 hits. 2 more men went down. One of Marcus's men tried to flank Cole by moving around the barn. Cole saw the movement and fired. Bang! The man dropped flat on his back. The gunfight dissolved into chaos. 12 men tried to storm a defended ranch held by 2 skilled shooters and 2 determined men. The arithmetic changed in seconds. The attackers lost their advantage. Marcus shouted orders that no one followed. His men were already retreating. The attack lasted 4 minutes. Marcus and 2 other men, the only ones still able to ride, fled across the prairie, screaming at anyone who could still move to follow them. Most of the remaining men, wounded or terrified, abandoned their horses and ran into the dim prairie on foot. One man raised his hands and surrendered rather than keep fighting. Cole climbed down from the barn roof. Eleanor stepped out from behind the stone wall. They looked at each other across the yard, 2 people who had just stopped a charge of 12 armed men and lived. Gun smoke hung in the air, drifting slowly. The ringing in their ears was all that remained of the noise. The prairie went quiet again. William had been badly wounded. The bullet had struck his shoulder. He would live, but his recovery would take months. James came out of the house and helped Eleanor tend to William's wound. Eleanor dressed it carefully and professionally. She had done this before. She had treated wounds, stopped bleeding, and saved lives. Cole made sure the battlefield was secure. The dead were left where they had fallen. The wounded who remained were given water and basic care. 3 men who had tried to kill Eleanor and Cole now sat against the barn wall, bleeding but alive, understanding that their war was over. One of them, a young man barely out of boyhood, looked at Cole with something between gratitude and shame. Gratitude that he had not been executed. Shame that he had ever ridden with Marcus Reeves at all. By the time the sun rose fully, the ranch was quiet. William rested inside, his wound bandaged. James sat with him, making sure the old man did not die in his sleep. Cole and Eleanor sat on the porch and watched the sun climb over the prairie. Morning light caught the dust still hanging in the air and turned it gold. The grass below began to find its true color again, no longer darkened by the shadow of violence. "What will you do now?" Cole asked Eleanor. "I will stay with James until he can move again," Eleanor said. "Then I will ride on. There are always people who need protecting." Cole understood. Eleanor was the same as him. Always moving. Always fighting. Never staying in one place long enough to become safe. "Where will you go?" Eleanor asked Cole. "I do not know yet," Cole answered. "Wherever the next fight is." Eleanor smiled. It was small, but it was real. "Thank you for staying," she said. "Thank you for firing first," Cole said. Eleanor understood what he meant. In the saloon, she had not waited for Cole to act. She had made her own choice and carried it out. That mattered. Cole stayed at the ranch one more day. He helped James and Eleanor make sure William's wound was properly treated. He made sure the ranch was secure and ready for any future attack. He rode the perimeter with Eleanor and marked additional defensive positions. He checked the ammunition and made sure there was enough for another siege. He spoke with James about what to do if Reeves returned. On the morning of the second day, Cole saddled his horse. Eleanor walked him to the gate. "I know who you are," she said. "I know what you do. You fight violence. You break power. I do the same." Cole nodded. "If you ever need help," Eleanor said, "send word. I will come." "And you do the same," Cole answered. Cole mounted his horse and rode north toward whatever battle waited for him next. Eleanor watched him disappear into the landscape. Then she returned to the ranch, where James was healing and William was regaining his strength. Eleanor stayed there for 3 months to make sure both men survived. She changed bandages. She cooked food. She made sure infection did not take what violence had failed to claim. When James could walk again and William was strong enough to work, Eleanor moved on. She found the next person who needed protection. She found the next system that needed to be broken. Marcus Reeves survived his wounds, but his operation was destroyed. Ranch owners across Hill County learned that resistance was possible. They learned that a man named Cole Harlan and a woman named Eleanor Vance would stand against violence. Marcus Reeves took his business to another part of Texas in search of easier prey, places where no woman like Eleanor Vance waited in a saloon with a Colt revolver. Eleanor Vance continued her work for 15 more years. She protected merchants. She protected women escaping dangerous men. She protected ranch owners from land thieves. She killed 7 more men in self-defense. Every shooting was justified. Every time, the other person chose violence first. Eleanor never remarried. She never settled in one place. She kept moving, crossing paths with men like Marcus Reeves wherever she found them. In 1899, Eleanor died the same way she had lived, protecting someone else. She was 47 years old. And this is what matters. Eleanor did not die thinking about grand strategy or the future of Texas. She died protecting one person in one moment. That is how it always works. No ideology. No grand philosophy. Just this, someone right here, right now, needs help. Eleanor helped. That is how legends are born. Not from perfect people making perfect choices, but from ordinary people making hard choices in moments that matter. Cole Harlan rode north toward whatever battle was waiting for him. That is what legends do. They keep moving. They keep fighting. They never settle. But they matter. Eleanor Vance mattered. Cole Harlan mattered. They mattered because they showed people that resistance was possible. Write in the comments below about someone you know who fights for what is right, someone who stands against injustice when staying silent would be easier. Tell me about them. Because people like Eleanor Vance deserve to be remembered, not as curiosities, not as exceptions, but as people who understood that the fight was necessary, and so they fought. Like the video if Eleanor's story deserves to be remembered, and subscribe so you do not miss the next story of Cole Harland. Each story is another piece of this war against violence and power. Write the name of your country below. How far has the legend of Cole Harland traveled? Watch the other episodes in the Silver Dollar series. Each one teaches something new about how power works, how systems operate, and what happens when ordinary people challenge them. I will see you on the next road.